But Bernie, in preparing for the start of the NBA playoffs, I wrote a column for Deadspin.com today, and basically the column was that when Kawhi wins the NBA title, and that's what I'm feeling like the Clippers have everything they need in order to get it done. I know a lot of people have a hard time still believing that the Clippers are going to win anything because of their history of futility. And I've always said the Clippers people look at the Washington Generals and the Clippers in the same way, that they were never going to win anything, but not this time around. They got the right guy to lead the way. And Bernie, if they do win this championship, which I believe they will, it will make Kawhi the king of the NBA. And let me give you my couple of reasons why, and then you could chime in. But he will have won back-to-back championships with two franchises that had never won anything until he put on their uniform. Toronto last year and the Clippers this year. That would give him 3 NBA championships, and he would be the first person to lead, not just be on the team and get 3 championship rings from 3 different teams, but actually be the lead dog and lead 3 different franchises to an NBA championship. And also, when you look at what happened this past summer when LeBron James tried to lure him to the Lakers, it would be the ultimate endorsement of betting on yourself. He could have joined Anthony Davis and LeBron James and had what I would call easy street, right? We would have seen a 3-headed monster we had never seen in the NBA. And instead, he decided to go to the Clippers. He didn't want to join royalty and LeBron. He joined the court jesters of basketball. And you know what? If he winds up being the big winner and win, I think he becomes the face of basketball. I know there are other great players, and I'm not saying that none of them don't matter. But 3 championships, 3 different franchises, and ultimately 3 finals MVP would be an impressive resume.
Well, first of all, the good news, Rob, the Clippers are coached by Doc Rivers, not Red Klotz, so they've got that going for them. But I read your article on Deadspin, and we traded texts, and we're in lockstep on this. First of all, LeBron coming to Los Angeles, this is much more than a singular championship, in my view. It's a referendum on LeBron's legacy. He asked to carry this torch because when you look at the history of the Lakers, Rob, the Lakers are a franchise defined by eras. You had the Wilt Chamberlain era, the Kareem Magic Johnson era, the Kobe era, the Shaq era. Now you've got the LeBron era. All of the preceding eras won championships, in most cases, multiple championships. So to watch an upstart, young, and I love the verbiage you used, soft-spoken, non-diva, come to town and cobble a team together that's never won anything and take home the crown that LeBron so much covets, we've not only got a huge story, I think we've got a referendum on both legacies, as you allude to, certainly Kawhi, who has to be the king of the universe if he does this.
And people will say, well, KD's a better player than him, and KD's a great player and has won back-to-back championships with Golden State before moving on to Brooklyn, won 2 finals MVPs. But, Bernie, I just think that Kawhi's resume is even – and that's not saying that Kevin Durant's not a better player. He could be, like, just skill-wise. But when you talk about being that kind of guy, this guy walked out on Pop in San Antonio, wanted no part of an organization that had done nothing but win, right? Their 22-year streak of making the playoffs got snapped this past regular season for them. So he did that. And he's still winning, and he went to the Clippers doing his own thing, and now he also spurred LeBron. I just think when you look at what he stacked up, most people would have taken the easy road. He could have easily gone to the Lakers, Bernie. They play in the same building. They play in the same city, right? The only difference is one has an unbelievable, fabled history, and the other one doesn't. And he chose the one that didn't.
I have a lot of respect for Kawhi, and I'm qualified to say that because I've been here in Vegas 10 years, and I covered the UNLV Running Rebels, and Kawhi went to San Diego State, saw him play courtside many times, talked to Steve Fisher about him. people don't have any idea how really good he is unless you've seen him in person and all the things he does that makes everybody around him better and things that don't show up in the box score. And he has a complete game. He's an offensive player. He's a defensive player. You know, you may not say he's the best defensive player in the league or maybe the best offensive player in the league, but you put the two together, and he's the best combination of both. I remember distinctly that San Diego State team, I want to say it was 2012 when UConn won it all with Kemba Walker. San Diego State, I believe, faced him in either the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. They were tied with 2 minutes to go. Thanks to Kawhi now, UConn pulled away and won, but you could see at that moment that Kawhi had the potential to be a transcendent player. What have you always said, Rob? It's a short menu in sports. Wins or losses. And I like KD. I think physically he's as gifted as anybody who ever put on the uniform. But when it comes to winning championships, Kawhi has proven to be that transcendent player. And in a minute, I'm going to give you the reasons why I think the Clippers will beat the Lakers.
And the other thing, too, when you look at it, you talked about it, he plays both ends of the floor. Two-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time All-Defensive First Team. I mean, what he's won 2 championships, been the Finals MVP twice, 2014 with the Spurs, 2019 with Toronto. When you look at the resume and you start to stack it up, and I think when you look at LeBron, you're right. His legacy will take a hit from the standpoint that this is his best last chance to win a championship in year 17, and let's not poo-poo what they did, Bernie, this year, which was win the West and play well and run some people out the gym and become the number 1 seed. And as you know, they are the favorites to win the championship in Vegas. Just because Vegas has made them the number 1 favorite to win doesn't mean that it is so. When you look at it basketball-wise, I think what Kawhi Leonard adds, and of course he has Paul George as his running mate, but what they add to the team from a year ago, Bernie, and you think about it, they got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But it still tells you about where they were. They won 2 games on the road against Oakland last year in the first round. They needed Kevin Durant to put up 50 points at Staples Center just to knock them out in 6 games, and they had no stars on that team. And going into it, you got to feel good if you're the Clippers. You got a guy who's been there, who's done that, who's not afraid of the stage, right? And all those other guys have to do is follow his lead and know that he can deliver because he's done it.
The inverse proportion of what you said about LeBron at the top is I think players wanted to play with Kawhi. We're talking about workman-like guys, the plumbers and pipe fitters that are willing to do the heavy lifting to contribute to a win. On the basketball court, as such, I think the Clippers have incredible depth. And if you remove the superstar pairs from both teams, you take that out of the equation and look at who the better team is, the answer is easily the Clippers because every single player on that roster is worthy of playing significant minutes on any given night. I believe Kawhi's made them better. Now let's put these two teams side by side. I define it as grit versus flash. You look at the intangibles, the Clippers, they're more regarded for their toughness and grit. The Lakers, they've kind of tried to bring back Showtime. But to me, the most desirable characteristic of any championship team is grit, more so than flashiness. And I think the Clippers have an advantage in that department thanks to the tone that Kawhi sets, which is what they set in Toronto last year. And finally, we don't really know how good this Clipper team can be yet because Leonard and George have only played a handful of games together before, the bubble. And
but when they've played, Bernie, I think their record is something like 15-1 when they've had their entire team. And I think that says a lot, that people know, I think even the Clippers, that when they're a whole unit, they're going to be hard to beat, especially for somebody trying to beat them 4 out of 7.
Well, I'm in complete agreement. In the context that I mentioned, the fact that just for happenstance, the reason that Leonard and George haven't had a chance to play a lot together is irrelevant. The more they are going to play together, the whole will become better than the sum of the parts, and I think they are going to wreak havoc in these playoffs. And you add to that what I believe to be the brilliant mind of Doc Rivers, because he'll juggle lineups. He'll shuffle in rotations.
They got 10 deep. Yep, they're 10 deep, Bernie.
Not only are they 10 deep, I want to reiterate this. These are 10 guys that can play significant minutes, not guys that can come in and play 8 or 10 minutes while someone gets a blow. I'm talking about guys that can play quality minutes. And when you add Doc Rivers' ability to shuffle rotations and combinations and find situational things in games, the Clippers are going to be a bear for just about everybody, but particularly the Lakers. And I haven't even mentioned the fact that the Lakers are really going to miss Avery Bradley. You can't poo-poo this. He brought defensive savvy. He brings a physical attitude. The last time the Clippers lost to the Lakers in the regular season before the bubble, Avery Bradley hit 6 threes that night. So when this gets going, the backcourt play is going to be problematic for the Lakers as well. And you're going to see LeBron try to put the team on his shoulders with a lot of iso ball and clear outs and bully ball. Not going to work because the Clippers can run bodies at him all night long.
It will be interesting, no doubt about it. And don't forget Rondo's out as well. So the Lakers are a little beat up and missing some people, but it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.